I call Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou kia ora. It's great to be back. Happy New Year to all the members. I'd actually like to congratulate the Prime Minister John Key. I mean, what's this, his 7th one of those? And I think this is the first one where he didn't try and blame Helen Clark for everything going wrong in the country. He had to look in the mirror a bit himself. But Mr Speaker, listening to some of the speeches, you can see exactly why young Kiwis are tuning out of our country's politics. What they heard was negative name-calling, pointless point scoring, partisan. Mr Speaker, we know Nick Smith is one of our country's youngest ever members. When he came in, he's got to ask the question, why aren't Kiwis participating? And they tune into this House and they're sick of all this partisan point scoring. They're seeing what they want to see is less of the Dr. Strangelove, less of the Dr. Doolittle comments, and what they got instead was Dr. Norman, who actually finally gave them what they want, which is a real debate about the issues, a real discussion, a real focus on solutions, which is not what we heard from the government side. So what Dr. Norman spoke about was the issues, and he talked about our priorities, which are climate change and inequality. Now, this is something our Prime Minister couldn't even mention once in his speech. We've seen the Pope, the US President, the Chinese President all make climate change the greatest threat of our generation, their priorities this year, but our Prime Minister couldn't even mention it once. Now, it was in his written speech, but it didn't make it into the Prime Minister's comedy set, but extra funding for oil and gas in New Zealand, extra subsidies for already one of the most wealthiest industries in the world from New Zealand taxpayers. At a time when we've seen the oil price bottom out at around $50 a barrel, when investment is declining all around the world, at a time when we know climate change is one of the most important threats facing us, and even the IEA say we can't afford to burn 2/3 of the oil we've already found. At a time when you see Stanford, the Norway Sovereign Wealth Fund, Rockefeller Brothers, Victoria University, Dunedin City Council, the Anglican churches, all divesting away from fossil fuels, we want to see our Prime Minister investing more of it from the taxpayer subsidy. Now, we know that climate change and inequality are environmental, social, moral questions and challenges, but they're also economic. And as we know, when it comes to inequality, the OECD has estimated 10% of New Zealand's gross domestic product has been slashed as a result of our growing inequality. Now, likewise with climate change, we've seen from Stern, we could be at risk 10 to 20% of our global GDP. So what we heard from the Prime Minister and National is a party that can't get a surplus, are flogging off the assets, and now they're looking at people's homes, and under them Kiwis work some of the longest hours for some of the lowest pay and pay some of the highest costs of living in the world. It's a sign that the National Party doesn't have a plan for our economy. It's a gambling plan, as we heard from Denise Roche when it comes to Sky City. And as we hear it with their big picture, their big plan for the New Zealand economy, hope someone foreign finds something in the bottom of the ocean, it's oily, we can export it, and they don't leave too much of a mess. That isn't a plan for our economic future or rich New Zealand. A future for New Zealand is a smart green economy, one built on innovation. The latest stats from the Parliamentary Library show R&D spending from the government's actually declined 3%. Now, it's great they've got a target. They've got a target for business to spend 1% of GDP on R&D. But, Mr Speaker, the way the government's going about it, they couldn't spend any less, because we already spend less than half of what average OECD countries do. If we want to have a richer economy, we need to invest in innovation and R&D to kickstart a smart, green, innovative economy. Another area totally ignored by National is the clean energy phenomenal economic opportunity, a sector which Bloomberg has just said has almost reached the bumper years, more than $310 billion in capital investment last year. An area PricewaterhouseCoopers says is a $22 billion economic opportunity for New Zealand. Where in New Zealand, our solar sector's grown 300% in the last 2 years, despite the uncompetitive barriers in market National's put in the way. And every 2.5 minutes, another American business or house goes solar. When it comes to the IT sector, Mr Speaker, sadly under National, 1/4 of New Zealand families still don't have internet or computer access. Now, Mr Speaker, at the current rate National's addressing it, it's going to take 227 years for all New Zealanders to finally get online. But at least the Minister, Amy Adams, isn't standing still. I saw she put out a very important press release today urging Kiwis to change their passwords. So we've got changing passwords, changing the flag, but no plan for a richer New Zealand, just a plan stand to gamble when it comes to dodgy deals, trying to bet against the house with Sky City, hoping someone finds some oil when the world is moving in a smart, green, clean energy sector. Mr. Speaker, this is the challenge we issued to the government. We're going to stand up for a smart, green economy, one that tackles the challenges of inequality and climate change. We're looking forward to the next 3 years. We're excited about the opportunity because ultimately our vision is one shared by tens and hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders who do want a richer New Zealand.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, it's great to be back